The Janker is a traditional jacket in the Alpine region in Europe. It's typically made from virgin wool from local mountain sheep. Its warm, thick fabric makes it perfect as an outerwear. Key design elements, it's usually a garter stitch or pearl and cables. It has some colored seams and fancy buttons made from horn or metal. I knitted this Janker on my Singer double bed knitting machine. I will have a link to a PDF with the detailed instructions in the description. Since the yarn is very thick, I had to knit with every other needle. This made the fabric too wide for the back, so I had to split it into two pieces. The front piece, as well as the arms and the back, will start with a red line at the bottom. But on the front piece, I need to add an additional fabric, which is stronger, to hold the buttons. In that fabric, I will also then knit the red line, that edge, to it. In addition, I will need to knit a red edge for the neckline and for that little bottom piece of that button fabric. Here you can see the swatch of the button fabric. It's basically round knitted, but every 2 or 3 rows I have a rib to make it more robust. So here are all the details of that knitting process. I made various type of different fabrics, trying to find something that looks like most Janker look like. I worked with test wool first, and then I went over to use the actual wool to replicate what I've tested so far. And from all these samples, I boiled it down to 2 favorites. There's this one, which is basically a tucking stockinette, and this one shows up in the manual as fancy stitch. In addition, I did various samples of the colored borderline, but ultimately decided to just do a stockinette stitch using the pearl side, and the fabric naturally rolls itself. At the end of this process, my daughter decided to use this type of fabric, which again is in the book under fancy stitches. That was 2 years ago, because last year we went to the beach with our camper to escape snow and ice. And no, there's not enough room for a knitting machine in that camper. Getting restarted after 2 years was a bit hard. I first tried to recreate the fabric, including the red borderline. But as you see, not much success. I lost stitches without noticing it. And also the fabric looks different than what I had initially. So I was a bit unhappy so far. This test was also to test the transition between the main fabric and the colored borderline. Here I tried some weird round knitting, which didn't look too nice. So I have to come up with a better idea. The self-rolling nature of the red color is actually not too bad. I like that. I'll spare you all the tests I did and just get started now. After washing and drying the swatch, I can measure it out and count the needles and rows, and I can determine the key factors I need to know to knit that Janker. For the actual dimensions, I used some sample on the internet for a Janker and merged that with the actual measurements of my daughter. For the back, I need a total of 96 needles, but since I'm only knitting every other stitch, my Singer is not long enough. So I'm only doing half of the back for now. I cast it on with stitch size 6, and now I'm doing round knitting. For now I'm working with 3 medium weights. That seems to be sufficient, but I may have to go up to 5 medium weights. I'm moving all stitches from the back bed to the front bed, because I want that colored border to roll towards the outside and not the inside. So this is done. I'm now switching back to regular knitting on stitch size 8. The back bed is turned off, plus the back needles are all deactivated, so nothing should knit on the back. Meanwhile, I increased to 4 knitting weights, and I hang in the weights for the edges. I knitted 8 rows in the red color, and I'm now transferring the red color to the back bed, because I will then continue with the main color. After the stitches are all transferred to the back bed, I'm adding 2 rows of the main color and regular stockinette. I consider the 2 rows as part of the border, even though it's the same stitch than the rest of the body, at least on the back. This is how it looks like so far. I now need to row 96 rows of regular stockinette until row count 96. The only thing I need to do is watch the stitches go clean and rehang the edge weight every 8 or 10 rows. The last 95 rows were pretty eventless, and here I'm at row 96. The arm cutout at row 96 starts with casting off 3 stitches. For the next 3 rows I'm reducing 1 stitch every row, and then again 1 stitch every other row until row counter 106. I'm now at row counter 106. So for the next 9 rows I remove a stitch every 3rd row. So I'm going to remove another 3 stitches over the next 9 rows. I'm at row counter 115. I have 36 needles left, the others are casted off. My edge weights hang right. And now I can keep going with regular knitting until row counter 158. I arrived at row counter 158. Here we start the cutouts for the neck and the shoulder drop. This is the left side of the bag, so here will be the shoulder drop off over the next 2 centimeters, and here is the neck cutout. For the neck cutout I'm putting the stitches on hold, because that's where we're gonna add the red colored border for the neck at the end. For the shoulder piece I'm gonna cast off. So the neck cutout will start with 13 pieces on hold. Then I will put another 2 needles on hold, then another needle on hold, and then 1 row later put another needle on hold. Whereas for the shoulders cast off, I will start with 1 needle right away, then I will cast off 6 needles, and the remaining 4 needles, if my math is right. I forgot to film. When I casted off the remaining needles of the shoulder, I casted off the last stitch onto the needle from the neck. Then I activated all neck needles. I knitted 2 rows, and I'm now moving the needles from the back bed to the front bed, because the red color will be knitted on the front bed so it rolls to the outside. So the red yarn is now in the carriage. At row 4 of the red, I'm gonna add 1 more needle to the mix. Oops, on the front bed, of course. So the neck gets a little bit bigger. I only do this on the outside, on the shoulder side. I don't do that on the inside. And after 8 rows of red, it's time to cast off. The second back piece is exactly the same, and now we start the front piece. I have started the left front piece. I needed my 8 rows in red, and I'm currently transferring the stitches to the back bed to continue in the main color. One special thing I want to mention is using the back pieces, we determined that we should make it a little wider than the original plan. So I'm adding basically 6 needles under the armpit. This way I can widen it without really impacting anything else. That will be sufficient. For this part of the video I will only show the differences compared to the back piece. So I added the 2 gray lines of straight stockinette. I changed the row counter back to 0 because now we start the main fabric. I need to make sure I put that bed to the right half a notch, and that I have enough room to do 3 clicks to the left. I do have enough room, so it's a good way to start the pattern. We now need to move the 16th and the 20th needle from the left onto the front bed, and I'll be moving it half that needle towards the right. Same with the next one. The front bed is on knitting, stitch size is 8, and I'm knitting back. I should have done that before, but no harm so far. I need to move the front bed 2 clicks to the right. So that needle after the empty space is left of the needle in front that has the stitch. Likewise over there, the needle after the space has the stitch left from the needle that has it on the front bed. And now I'm going to rows. After 2 rows, we need to do 2 clicks to the right. Click, click. Now that needle on the front bed has 2 needles on the back bed that are active. So if you see the situation where after the empty space we have 2 needles in the back bed and then the front needle, and we have to do our clicks, then we need to click to the left. If the needle is between the first and the second, we need to click to the right. So that front needle always bounces between the needle 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. So every time we have an even number on the row counter, we need to do 2 clicks. Next time 2 clicks back. And we do that until row counter 141 or something like that. I'll have to check the instructions. It might be good practice to push some of the needles out because they are a little bit under stress, but most of the time it still worked on my machine, but you may find it a bit more secure to not lose any stitches or so. I reached row counter 141, which means now it's time to start the neck. Carriage is on the left. I'll start with casting off 2 on the left. This is where the neck will be. I'm only casting off 2. Remember, there's gonna be about 4 centimeter extra fabric for the button area, which is gonna be a little stronger material. Cast off is done, so I knit to the right, do my 2 clicks. Before I move left, I have to reduce 1 stitch on the left. Now I'm casting off another 2 needles before I continue. 2 needles are cast off, weights are readjusted and go back. Time to do 2 clucks. Starting at row counter 144, I'm gonna reduce 1 stitch every row until we reach row counter 150. So at row counter 151 I need to reduce another needle, and at 153 I need to reduce another needle, and then I can go up until line 158. So row counter 158 I should have 19 needles active. I'm now casting off 6 needles, and then we'll see. I'm now high enough in the shoulder area with the fabric, so it's time to stop the special pattern and move those 2 stitches from the front bed back to its original position in the back bed. Knitting back to the right then. Now I can cast off another 6 needles. I do that offline. They are casted off. Now I knit to the left, and there's only 4 stitches left. But actually I would need row counter 164. So maybe, I know it's not really important, but let me move those stitches, one to the left, knit to the right, and then cast off. That concludes the front piece. The other front piece is basically the same, just the opposite directions, everything. Next I want to make the button line, which will be attached here. That's gonna be a stronger fabric with buttonholes. And we also need to do a red border for it. Plus we also need to construct a red border around the neckline. And a little piece for down there for the button fabric. So for the button fabric I casted on 74 needles. Stitch size 6, and I'm going to do 1 round of round knitting in stitch size 6. Then I keep round knitting for 3 full rows, so 6 movements with the carriage on stitch size 9. Next I'm going to regular knitting on both sides, meaning doing a rib on stitch size 6. This rib between the round knitted rows makes the fabric stronger. Back on stitch size 9 and round knitting on both sides, I will do 2 more rounds to row counter 11. So I did another round of rib on stitch size 6, and now 4 more rounds on round knitting on stitch size 9. It's now time to move all the stitches from the front bed to the back bed. All stitches are on the back bed, and I'm now doing my normal colored border thing, which means I have 2 stockinette rows with gray. Then I move all the needles to the front bed, and then I do 8 stockinette rows in red, and then I'm casting off. I'm on row counter 2 with my red fabric, and I need to consider that this side of the fabric and the other side of the fabric will be an edge, meaning the red border will go around the corner. So I'm going to increase by 1 needle on both sides. Of course the increase is on the front bed, not on the back bed. Now at row counter 6 I'm gonna decrease by the 1 needle on both sides. Row counter is 8 and I will cast off. So here's the front piece I knitted earlier. And here comes the button area we knitted, including the red border. That will have to be attached now. I attach it with a mattress stitch. I'm not showing how I did it exactly. There's enough videos on YouTube on how to do mattress stitches, and they are probably better than what I do. Now was the time for me to figure out how to do buttonholes. I never did a buttonhole in my life, nor did I work with a sewing machine. Using my swatch, I first tried to do the automatic buttonhole sewing machine feature. but the soft fabric didn't move well enough back and forth, so I have to go manually. Initially I wanted horizontal buttonholes, but also there the fabric didn't move right, so I ended up with vertical holes. With the little template I marked the locations for the beginning of the buttonholes. That was harder than I hoped for, because some of my holes were a little too long, others I had to correct, or it was bent, or I had to make it twice. But eventually I think it works out. Before actually cutting the yarn open, I blocked the thing with some needles so I don't cut too far. That normal seam cutting tool didn't really work out that great. I think the wool was too thick and too rigor. So for the other holes I had to come up with something else. Next I need to knit the colored edge for the neck area of the front. For the colored border around the front of the neck, I casted on 22 needles and did my round knitting, transferred everything to the back bed, did my 2 rows on stitch size 8, transferred everything to the front bed and changed to red. Plus I added 1 needle with an E-loop that shall knit now. This red needs to go around the edge to the button section. On my way back I'm adding another needle. Oops. And for the last 2 rows I'm gonna reduce 1 stitch every row to get back to the original size. And then I'm casting off. And last but not least, I need to do the 2 arms. So I started the arms, I casted on 42 needles in red, moved all the stitches to the front bed, did my 8 rows, moved everything to the back bed and did 2 rows in grey, and now I have to start preparing the pattern for the arm. The arm pattern will be around the center of the arm. Like with the other pattern, I moved 1 stitch over, kept 3 needles and then I moved another stitch over. And before I start knitting, I move it 1 step to the right, so it's past the other needle. Now I can knit my first row. Same as with the other pattern, after every 2 rows I need to shift 2 to the right or 2 to the left. So I'm not going to show that every time I do it. The other thing I need to do is after every 4th row, add 1 needle to the left side. After another 4 rows, add 1 needle to the right side. Another 4 rows, add a needle on the left side. So this way I need to add needles to make the arm wider. To do an increase, I simply move the needle out and it will catch it up when I knit to the left. I'm at row counter 21. I need to do this until row counter 76-ish, 76, 78. At that time we will stop the pattern on the arm. It's not going to go the entire arm up, it's only until over the elbow or so. So it's a little, I have to concentrate, so I'm not doing more videos, because every other row I need to shift front bed left right. Every 4 rows I need to either increase on the left side or on the right side, so I need to stay focused. Plus I'm shifting the outer needles, push them out to get the stitch behind the ledge to ensure they knit right. So at row counter 78 I just finished the pattern with the stitch on the left side. And now it's a good point to move it back, because I can basically take the stitch out without too much tension and pull it on the empty space it initially was. And the same with that needle. Take it out and pull it back to its initial location. So the rest of the yarn will just be knitted on the back bed. We can decouple the front bed, and we need to keep increasing every 4 rows, left, right, left, right. Other than that, it's a straight shot. Watch the edge weights and keep going. So I reached row counter 121. I have meanwhile 73 needles active, and I'm now starting to cast off for the arm, for the underarm. On 121 I casted off 6 needles on both sides. On 122 I only need to remove 1 stitch on both sides. I keep doing that for 3 or 4 rows, and then I have 3 or 4 rows where I reduce every other row 1 stitch, and then it slows down every 3rd row and then every 4th row. At row counter 140 I have 43 active needles left, and I will now reduce 1 every 5th row. So at row counter 170, that's the last time I do this reduce 1 needle every 5 rows thing. And then we are gonna reduce very fast for the upper part of the shoulder. So on row counter 172 and 173 I'm gonna reduce 1 each side every time. On 174 I'm gonna cast off 3 stitches on each side. On 175 I'm gonna cast off 4 stitches on both sides. And at 176 I'm casting off the remaining 30 needles. And done.